to my earlier question regarding the admonition of Senator Santiago. Your opinion, sir, regarding another issue regarding the surveys, SWS, Forest Asia, coming out with surveys regarding the possible outcome of the impeachment proceeding. Now, this will really influence the decision of the Senate Court. Now, your opinion, sir, regarding this?
You know, very interesting. The problem with the surveys is that they can be tailor-made in many ways. They can be structured. The other problem is that the information, full information about the surveys is usually suppressed. For instance, I just learned today that ABS-CBN ran a survey showing that there is an overwhelming majority who believe that the whole reason behind the impeachment is Hacienda Luisita. But ABS-CBN has refused to release the survey. Okay. The surveys that were released around March, where allegedly there is a 47% conviction preference and whatnot, represent very small samples, 1,200, 1,400. Doesn't disclose where these samples were taken. I remember being asked about these surveys at the previous forum, and I said, you know, just to prove the point, why don't we hold a survey at Hacienda Luisita? Let's survey the farmers and let's see what they think. And then you tell me if surveys are reliable. Why don't we hold a survey among employees of the judiciary? And if you want, surveys among employees of Malacanang, you see? So, while I am not attacking the integrity of survey companies or pollsters or what, we have to be very careful about the release of surveys because precisely the full objectivity of a survey leaves much to be desired. And that's why my good friend from here wrote an extensive article explaining why, you know, surveys should not be allowed. Of course, it's a little more complicated than that. You know, we can get into all kinds of arguments about free expression and whatnot. The fact remains that the surveys tend to promote what we call a crowd mentality. If the surveys, if you have enough money, you can produce enough surveys that favor your side or your product if you're in a marketing effort, and people will start to believe that this is the right product or the right opinion to adopt because many other people seem to think that that position is safe. That is the problem with surveys. The nice thing about it, however, is, and I think you should take note here, is that our senators are actually experts at surveys. They are very familiar with how surveys work. They themselves conduct their own surveys for various applications. So my only hope is that the senators themselves will not be swayed by the surveys. My concern, however, is that the surveys do seem to sway public opinion.
This is my take on the surveys. If you would note, the surveys cover the period March 10 to March 13. The defense started presenting evidence only on March 12. The survey was completed 2 days or on the second day after we commenced with the presentation of our evidence. And sad to note that we will not have that opportunity to get to see the faces of the respondents in the survey. We will not know whether or not they are truly within that age group, how deep is their knowledge of the impeachment, what the actual participants in the proceedings. We just have to rely on the supposed credibility of the survey firms. And there is no opportunity to place these respondents on the witness stand to be examined. And worse, we will not know their biases, their prejudices, and their interest in this proceeding. Worse, what happens is this. There are opinion makers and writers who will read the original text and will present only portions of surveys. That's why I request the survey firms to please publish the full text of the survey in newspapers. And let's leave the public to decide on whether or not, to them, what is a survey. Now, the result of the survey. Now, let me now call your attention to the fact that as of this time, there are still survey results. Based on my understanding, survey companies would come up with the survey results on a quarterly basis, right? And every time I would note, from the release in March 10, between March 10 to 13 survey, they will say that that was the latest. Middle of April, they come up with the same period from the same firm. And this time, the latest. Of course, the public, depending on if they actually read the news accurately, they wouldn't know it's between 10 to 13 March. And then just like today, there was another latest survey, again, to cover March 10 to 13 on the present perception of the public of who the Chief Justice is. That is what you call news management to my mind. Okay? So this is what we're faced with. In fact, the truth is, when I started helping in this process, I did not know that it is as hard as it is. Being ordinary lawyers, to our mind is just, when we speak, we should speak the truth. When we speak, we should present and inform. But the reality is, when we speak, only portions of what we speak or what we say are published. And depending on that, how it is packaged. And now the reader will have to decide on how to appreciate what we allegedly said. So these are realities that we are faced with. Alam niyo po yun. So, mahirap talaga.
It is seen on television, the impeachment proceedings. And I think Senate President Enrile issued a rule that all impeachment discussion must be purely in the Senate.
Yes.
But the spokesman of the presidential panel, every day, every proceedings, they're also doing another
That's a very good point.
which is not true. They
And,
are twisting the
that's a
story.
very good
And
point.
they are not
Doing the same thing.
doing the same thing.
Yes.
And with due respect to the media, we're in the media.
Yes.
And they are using that also. They're using the media to castigate, lambast, liquidate, eliminate.
Yes.
The kind of style to just dismantle the justice.
See, there's a second problem. As you remember, when we held a press conference accusing Malacanang of attempting to influence the vote of the judges, I was cited in contempt. Okay? You remember that. Now, in the course of the proceedings, there was illegal information that was introduced, which according to them mysteriously appeared from a small lady, mysteriously appeared on the gate. The gate has no holes, huh? It's a solid gate, but somehow it was there on the gate, whatever it is, right? But these guys have never been held in contempt.
Yeah. That's it.
Because there is a rule called interparliamentary courtesy. None of the congressmen there have been held in contempt. But all the ordinary lawyers have been punished. Attorney Aguirre, myself, etc. Now, let me leave it at that before I once again have to explain myself.
Last question. When Justice De Lima disobeyed the order of the Supreme Court,
Yes.
and it's being backed up by the executive people there, and they are teaching us how not to respect the law, how to be disobedient, and this is not good because the Department of Education and everybody from the upper court cascading to the lower courts will be affected in not following what is good as far as the law is concerned.
Thank you very much. You know, about 10 days ago, my good friend Justice Midas Marquez delivered a speech in Baguio City expressing precisely, observing precisely that there has been a pattern of disobedience There was the case of the bikini girl and STC. I think that was here. Was that here?
Yes.
Yeah, that was here. Where the nuns did not abide by the TRO. Okay? There was the peace bonds where Kim Inares refused to honor the TRO. The GMA TRO. What else was there? He cited several instances where there has been a refusal to recognize orders of the court. This is a serious problem. This is a bastardization of our system of justice. It has never been seen before, only under this administration. And you are correct, we are deeply bothered by this. And I hope that some measure will be done in order to remind the judges the importance of enforcing their orders. Hopefully we can do this in a way that will not bring more friction between the departments. But you're right, for a high-ranking official like the Secretary of Justice to openly, publicly, and with the apparent consent of the President disregard an order of the Supreme Court, which under the Constitution is their sworn duty to uphold, is a serious crack in our constitutional system of justice.
Sir,
That is a problem.
you might be too late in moving from one city or province to another, but you have still time to saturate different sectors of society, to crystallize the minds of other people who has no time to read newspaper and possibly still to watch the television. So when you're marching on, I think we can crystallize now the minds of other people for balanced purposes. As of now, the media is also used by the other side.
Thank you very much for that suggestion. And I am counting on you, the media, to do that without mentioning my name.
I'd just like to add on that point of blatant disregard of laws and of the decisions of the Supreme Court. And one of my personal experiences is with respect to the opposition to the appointment of Chief Justice Corona, which I think also affected maybe his popularity in the first place. And I was one of those people who first signed this public statement opposing his appointment. And this was because of my own interpretation of the constitutional prohibition on midnight appointments. But after that, the Supreme Court rendered a decision upholding the legality of his appointment. And so a lot of people, you always say that, oh, that's his own turf, that's why he got a favorable decision. That's not true, because if you hear his speech, he even had Chief Justice Corona himself has his conspiracy theory, in which one of his theories is that one of the justices of the Supreme Court wants to be Chief Justice himself. So the point here is, if you have a Supreme Court decision upholding the legality of that appointment, how can that be an impeachable offense? And we see this in the impeachment complaint itself, that the Congress, in spite of that Supreme Court ruling, still included the midnight appointment issue as one of the impeachable offenses. Now, if we say that this is an impeachable offense, I think that's tantamount to disregarding the decision of the Supreme Court and our constitutional provision, giving the Supreme Court the power to interpret the laws of the land. So I think we should respect decisions of the Supreme Court, uphold the integrity of each branch of the government. And this is really, for me, also bothersome, in spite of the fact that I have my own interpretation of the law, which did not agree with the interpretation of the Supreme Court. I think as long as we have the Supreme Court there, we should learn to respect institutions. Because can you imagine if we put it on ourselves to decide which Supreme Court decisions are correct, which laws are valid and which are void, then no one will pay value-added tax. No one will pay income tax or follow any laws which we find inconvenient or which we do not approve of. And this is really going to lead to either chaos or what we call the rule of the mob, which is really against what we agreed to be in, which is to be a constitutional government which is under the rule of law.